I'm not even sure what to say. Uh, that was, I'm speechless. Beyond speechless. Papa Schroeder, we just talked about this a second ago before going on air. What, what the hell just happened?
It was definitely a wild night.
Yeah, this Triple H took the ring, took the ball, whatever, and just held it over his head and said, "Take it from me, I dare you."
That's a fact. I mean, it's been such a shift.
WWE just won, in my opinion, and they're continuing to win. I obviously let's just get right into it. Bray Wyatt's back officially. Um, I don't know. I don't know how to sum up his return other than that was Bray Wyatt 100%, and I'm all for it. What do you think? What did you think about one of the biggest free agent signings in the past 20 years, if not ever?
Perfect. I don't think that they could have done it better, honestly. The way that they pulled it off, at first I was a little annoyed just because it's such a tease, and just going in, having that anticipation and thinking, is this, gonna be it? Are we finally gonna, see Wyatt come back? Because I don't think I was 100% sold. I feel like the vignettes and things like that kind of got me, more sold than I was before. But I don't think that, like you said, just what just happened. Like I'm actually excited to probably watch Raw this week. I mean, I honestly don't watch a ton of wrestling live and whatnot. It's just there's something to it. Like, and we talked about it in our last episode with Triple H taking over, and changing things up. Like, it's absolutely changed the ball game. And with where AEW's been in the last month or so, during this whole time frame with the Bray Wyatt, the lead up and the return, it's the dynamic in the professional wrestling landscape has just changed 360. And like I said, I don't think you could have done it any better. Rethinking it, watching it a couple of times now, just the lead up into exactly, how they played that out, going back to the Funhouse, and just tying the whole character together. I think the new mask will grow on me. I didn't love it, the first night, but you had to do something different.
Yeah, you did. And just kind of, yeah, I'm not sure how all these characters are going to play in together. And I guess that's what we'll see as time progresses, and he kind of gets a chance to come on shows and do whatever he's going to do. But it's very obvious that he brought back the Wyatt family, Bray Wyatt. It's pretty clear that that is coming back, along with, I'm assuming, from what I read initially, when everything had kind of started, it was in the contract of a 4-character deal to where he was going to have 4 different characters. Now, whatever those 4 characters are, it's obviously still remains to be seen, but it obviously looks like Wyatt family, Bray Wyatt, with a mix of the Fiend and whatever the hell those other things were, looks to be a mix of the two. But
Fascinating.
It's just again, I hate to repeat myself, but it just goes back to it took one guy to make a changing of the guard, and now you're easily the best wrestling promotion in the world. Not that they weren't already, but if you forgot, you know.
Yeah, it's like replanting that flag almost tonight, especially just because how game changing tonight was. We talked about it just through text, talking about what we were watching it, just how good the show was, top to bottom, really, and how electric the crowd was. And I think a lot of people forget how important the crowd is for wrestling. When you have people excited, especially at a live event excited, there's nothing better than a huge pop, a huge moment. I mean, think about how many moments are just almost made off of just the pop that it received. I mean, the Bray Wyatt thing, the pop it received, like when he turned to the camera and, I'm not exactly sure if he said, "I'm back," something like that. You couldn't even hear him. You literally could not hear him.
I've never heard anything like it.
Yeah.
It was the loudest pop I've heard. It was rock-esque. It was Stone Cold-esque. It was huge. And I mean, I I don't think people really understood just how big Bray Wyatt was, but now you get it. I mean, Bray Wyatt is the biggest star in wrestling.
And I think you could be right. And it's crazy to think about, everything he's been through, the up and down road that Bray has seen to this moment, because you might absolutely be right. And really, the two hottest stars in wrestling in the last year, the way that they have, I think, kind of jumped on that stardom is, obviously with Cody Rhodes is who I'm talking about, along with Bray Wyatt. With Cody, it's a lot different. He left, he made a name for himself, then he made his return anticipated, just like Wyatt did. And the way that they got there and the pops that they received, WrestleMania, and then this Extreme Rules, just the way it was set out. I mean, I think, moments like this is what makes, I don't know, like the biggest star in wrestling could be anyone at any given moment is kind of what I'm trying to get to. And they have, even like when CM Punk came back with AEW, him being away for so long, the, just hunger to want to see him wrestle, to perform, to be back in that element. And then especially with Bray Wyatt, I mean, think about how many times, WWE creative has tried to kill Bray Wyatt, essentially. Maybe inadvertently, but just through the years, and it's only made him bigger, more popular, and better for it, really, because, I mean, every hiatus he's had from TV, whether, he was, under contract or not, it has just made him bigger, a bigger star.
It has, I mean, it really has made him, I'm trying to think of the word, Undertaker-esque.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah, it has that same allure to it, to where you take someone off TV and you want that situation. And now that I'm thinking about it, that's actually probably more of a better analogy. It was a very Taker-esque pop for Bray Wyatt.
Yeah.
And, that's huge for them. They were talking about, just talking about contracts in general. We'll talk about this and we'll get right onto the pay-per-view itself. But they're talking about contracts. We'll switch over to wrestling world and just general. Jon Moxley had a huge contract signing with AEW, so obviously he's not going anywhere. But just how do you feel about the landscape of contract wrestling? Because apparently there's a rumor that another star who WWE lost is coming back now. We talked about this a couple times, but Jon Moxley put a stake in AEW, and that's where he's going to stay. How long do you give AEW before WWE doesn't buy them out necessarily, but basically says, these are our guys, here's the checkbook, good luck? How long do you give AEW before it's kind of... Tonight just kind of felt like Big Brother stepping up and finally just letting Little Brother have the run, but playtime's over. How long do you give AEW, or do you think AEW fights back from this?
I think they fight back. I think, though, I'm not sure exactly in what way, because one thing about AEW, I mean, I think that their checkbook's pretty long too, with the cons and everything that they can put forth to build that. But at the same time, realistically, I mean, WWE is the, like in the 90s with WCW and WWE, there was no way WWE could compete with, WCW and Ted Turner and the money that he had compared to WWE. But since then, WWE has turned into they're a public traded company. They, as long as the investors are rolling in the money and, things are going all right, and right now things are way up. I mean, literally anybody could be yours right now. If they're not under contract, obviously Dean Ambrose. I always want to call him Dean Ambrose, but Jon Moxley is not he's not gonna want to jump ship, and I don't think that there's a ton of people. I mean, over there. I mean, at the top of the card right now for AEW, I don't think there's a ton of people that are ready to just jump ship or would want to. So I do think they fight back. I think they fight back with their programming and stuff, and I haven't kept up with them a ton the last couple of weeks as much as I wanted to. Just seeing how they combated the whole situation with the suspensions and CM Punk, and hearing CM Punk likely won't ever return. And that's probably it for CM Punk in wrestling at this point.
It's probably good for AEW in the biggest frame. It, and I said this on the last one we had, but fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, sure. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you.
Yeah.
Punk just kind of fooled everybody with the whole, them against me story. It's kind of obvious, dog, that it was you. So it sucks because Punk was such a big character, but it's just time to go. You're older anyway. You obviously drain a lot out of the locker rooms. Just let it go. Wrestling's in such a good spot right now. I don't think we need a guy like CM Punk anymore. Not that he isn't one of the best ever, but you just don't need it anymore.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, with his showing, I think really kind of, to me, post matches and things like that, and the injuries that he sustained now and his really relatively short return, I don't think that, I don't think he was ready to come back full time. Or not that he wasn't ready, just I don't think that there was ever going to be a time where you get a full-time CM Punk, back in wrestling, and to be, that guy, to be top of the card, to be leading the charge of your promotion in AEW. And I mean, I don't know if they planned like that. It kind of seemed like they wanted that, but I don't think that it was ever going to be that. And I think that just his body language and the way he seemed, he seems like he's done, I think, too, to a point.
I think he is. I think you nailed it on the head. I think he is done too. And I think it's just a both parties' decision at this point. So whatever happens, happens. But, CM Punk's gone. It's not the end of the world for any wrestling, because I think AEW, like you said, is in good hands. But, like we talked about, if WWE puts on shows like this, which now we'll get into the whole show in general, I mean, for the first match, they just beat the living holy hell out of each other for 15, 20 minutes. I think WWE says that all the time. Oh, they beat the holy hell out of each other. No, they literally beat the hell out of each other for 20 minutes. And that set the tone for the whole night. But what was your overall take of it? I was a little ahead of you on watching it, but that was it was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Watching 6 guys beat the hell out of each other.
And that group of guys, Pete, or not Pete Dunne, what do we call it? Butch, yeah. Butch, Sheamus, Ridge Holland, and then Walter on the other, or no, fuck, he's not Walter anymore. He's Gunther, yes.
Kaiser, and the third guy is newer.
Yeah.
I haven't nailed his name yet. But,
the name changes kill me, man.
Yeah, that's probably, it's stupid, but
yeah.
I also I don't know if you know, well, I'm sure you did, but the ability and the storytelling to keep Sheamus and Gunther away from each other until a certain point, to where it was everyone was down, but Sheamus got up, took out Kaiser and the other, and then it was just him and Gunther in the middle of the ring. That is the difference between Triple H and Vince storytelling.
Yeah.
Right there. You know where the story is supposed to go, so get it there, but get it to where it has that climactic point. And that's exactly what they did in that match. And it was beautiful. It was a perfect physical match that got Sheamus over. And how over is Sheamus right now? I mean, my God.
In 2022, do you think you'd ever see that again?
That's the most over he's been in 10 years.
It's a fact.
And not that he doesn't deserve it.
Right. But it just goes to show. It just goes to show what they can do and how much star power they really have. I think that's another thing we forgot over the years is how much star power WWE possesses. Because, just 2-3 years ago, we're looking at Sheamus like, it's Sheamus, And, at this point, this is Sheamus. Like, he is still, a top-notch wrestler and has star power and definitely value. And this card up and down, like just like you're talking about, there's such a difference. And I think it's just, new life being breathed into the company from a guy that's not worn down from the, just like the political, like, financial landscape of, being a shareholder, things like that, with Vince being the owner, moving into the publicly traded side during his time and, kind of getting away from the more wrestling. Obviously, you don't want to call them wrestlers, call it all of that kind of stuff just over the years to try to make the company as valuable as possible, which is, understandable, but definitely Vince let it get in the way of how he ran the business. And with Triple H coming in, he's not far removed from being an on-screen character, active wrestler, all these things, so I think he can take it directly from his career and into a new career of, helping, with creative and doing things that are really going to help the company. And that was a great one. I just, while we're on the topic, I'm going to jump forward a little bit just to real quick for the Judgment Day.
Yeah.
Edge versus Finn Balor. That match is another one that, to me, like you said, the storytelling of the match in that first match, the storytelling of this whole story and how long this has gone on is what a difference, right? What a difference to have a story I'm not tired of and that's gone on this long.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously Triple H had to come in and fix it. There were some holes in it that weren't very good. The Judgment Day was kind of ruining Finn Balor. The point of bringing Finn Balor into it was to bring Finn Balor back, but it was actually hurting him more than it was. There was a point where they hadn't been on TV for a month. So Finn Balor and Judgment Day, but what Triple H did tonight, and who knows how many other people have a hand in this. I'm sure there are a lot of other different people. But Triple H, what he did tonight was made the Judgment Day the most hated group on the roster, which is what he needed to do, and then made Finn Balor the biggest heel on the roster.
And at this point, he's definitely the leader of the Judgment Day.
Yeah, mission accomplished. You don't have to wonder who the leader is.
Yeah.
You don't have to wonder who the biggest heel is. They did all that. And that pop, and I think we're going to get it, and I didn't really realize I wanted it until the fans just went ballistic. The Beth Phoenix Rhea Ripley stare down.
Yes.
I was like, "Ooh, this would be a good match. Oh, that would be a great match." Actually, I want to see this match. Rhea Ripley versus Beth Phoenix. I mean, come on, and that sounds awesome. Beth Phoenix looks pretty good. I mean, I think she's early mid-40s. A couple of kids, but she looks good. And I think she had a match or two, and she didn't look too bad. So
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure she could do a 20-minute match, no problem.
Yeah, I agree. And she's like you said, been a little active, but she didn't have the longest career ever. So I think that's kind of an added advantage too. Sometimes you see with wrestlers, their run that they go on initially. And take time away and come back. Even Edge, Edge had a lot longer of a run, obviously, but maybe he's benefited from having a lot of time off instead of being kind of an intermediate guy, like coming in and have a few matches a year. But yeah, like you said, they made Finn Balor the biggest heel in the company tonight. And shout out to Michael Cole, because I saw a thing not too long ago about how he's doing the best work of his career and not getting enough credit for it. And tonight, I feel like he made me think of Jim Ross.
Yeah, Michael Cole put over that match perfectly. He put over, Ray getting beat up by Dominic. He put over
That's your
Dominic
father.
getting kicked in the nuts by Edge.
Yes.
Michael Cole put that over very well. He put, and I loved the mob mentality at the end with the concerto to Beth Phoenix.
Yeah.
You kind of saw it coming, but you didn't. And Rhea Ripley, how great has she been in this new role? She looks at Edge and says something rather or another, and just smashes Beth Phoenix in the head. That was beautiful. You don't get much better than that. And it does continue the story, but it's a new aspect to it. So all in all, it was not perfect, but it was damn near close.
And you didn't have your world champion on this card.
Right.
Or Brock Lesnar.
Right. No Brock Lesnar. No Roman Reigns. And that's still one of the best shows of the year.
Does it not show how misused some of this talent has been over the last couple of years?
That too. One match, and this was, we're skipping around a little bit, but
yeah.
One match that I'm just not sure was Liv Morgan, Ronda Rousey. Not sure how you totally feel about that. I liked that they were selling Liv Morgan needed the bat to really kind of help her against Ronda. But at the same aspect, it didn't hit for me, and this has kind of been the issue with Liv Morgan matches. They're just not hitting like they should, and honestly, I think that's why she lost tonight. They seem to be a lot of botches that shouldn't be there. And I know Ronda's not the best non-botch wrestler. She's had a lot of them, and there were some few tonight that were on her, but it just seems like Liv wasn't as ready as they thought. And not that she wasn't doing good, but tonight just kind of showed she wasn't as ready. I don't know if that's what you took from it, but for me, I took it as Liv just wasn't quite ready, so we're going to give it to someone who's at least been there and can do it. And Ronda, that seemed like the business decision on Triple H's mind, is from what I took out of that.
Yeah, I could totally see that, because with Liv, I'm definitely a Liv Morgan fan. I liked the Riot Squad. I kind of liked what they had going. And so through that, obviously she's the only one that made it out of those three. But I've always been kind of a fan of Liv Morgan's, and I think you're right. I think that she just wasn't ready, because I feel like all of her matches, it's like, I want to believe and I want to, I don't know, be more into it. And it seemed like tonight, like you said, it was weird, clunky. And then I hated the pin at the end. When she went for the pin after she put Ronda through the table, and she rolled her up, and I was like, why is she doing that? And then she puts her in the armbar immediately after. I'm like, oh my god, that was literally just for the armbar.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I was like, man, well, this isn't over then.
Mm-hmm.
And again, not that she's not good at her job. She is. She's a good wrestler, but there's spots where where to set it up and when not to set it up. And I think their goal here was they promoted Charlotte Flair earlier tonight. We haven't really seen much of her lately, but I would guess that Charlotte would probably be coming back to SmackDown, I would assume, at some point, and I would assume Ronda getting the title is going to aid that. Not that I want to see Ronda Rousey Charlotte Flair again, but I would imagine that's where we're going with it. But yeah, Liv's just not ready. It was obvious tonight, and again, I'm a Liv Morgan fan as well, and I think a lot of people are. But if you're a Liv Morgan fan, you have to know that tonight wasn't it.
Yeah.
And it showed, unfortunately, in a big way.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, Even the Becky Lynch stuff was a little bit, I thought it was really good, but it was also still a little bit, I don't know. Yeah, I think she's just not ready for the top of the card yet. Do you think she gets to the point where she is ready for the top of the card and a real, a nice, lengthy title run at least?
With that stuff, I don't know. And again, not that this is a knock on Liv Morgan, but WWE is on a rocket ship right now. So if you ain't there, then you ain't on it. So
yeah, because they're definitely showing the willingness to try to promote people and really push people and see, okay, what do we got here? Let's see.
Yeah. So I mean, can she come back and be a champion for a while? I think she can, but it's kind of I think she's gonna have to do what Mandy Rose did or is doing. They took Mandy Rose out, put her in NXT, and they're putting her as the top female wrestler in NXT, and she's done a good job with it.
Mm-hmm.
They unified the UK title and the NXT Women's title to her. So I think they're going to have to kind of repackage Liv again, but I think that is a project that is later down the road because I think WWE has more interest at hand at the moment. And there's still a little uncertainty if Sasha Banks is coming back. That could be another thing of it too. I don't think they really saw Sasha Banks, Liv Morgan as a great match. They saw Sasha Ronda as a better opportunity, which I'm not a huge fan of Sasha, but I agree that is a much better match than Sasha Liv.
I did see Sasha in one of the vignettes, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Just showing that, they're on screen, or, she's on screen. So, I mean, probably points to that. I'm honestly surprised that her and Naomi haven't come back yet. I thought for sure that they would come back around the time that they did the women's tag title tournament. I thought they'd either pop up in the tournament or right after. But
well, I read that Naomi may not be coming back. From what I understand, apparently that whole situation was too much for her. But Sasha Banks may be coming back. So who knows with that?
Fair
the
enough,
WWE's been doing a good job of keeping their secrets. We'll keep it on the women. That ladder match between Bianca Belair and Bayley. It was a little clunky too, but towards the end, it showed that those two are two of the best wrestlers on the women's roster, and it got really good at the end. I'm a little surprised they didn't let Bayley win.
I was literally gonna say the wrong person won.
I agree. I think the wrong person won because you just gave Damage Control the women's tag titles, give her the belt, and then let them do basically, what the Bloodline's doing now. But
yeah,
maybe there's something else that's added to the storyline that we just don't know yet. So who knows? But I think Triple H, even though he's gotten a lot of it right, every now and then he's going to miss. Damage Control didn't win the tag titles in the first chance they could. So who knows? But I will say I did like this match as it went on. I think it just kind of got a little clunky at the beginning. They weren't really sure how to use the ladders, but they figured it out mid-match and ended up being, a typical good Bayley match.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I thought it all hit, just other than the who won. And like you said, maybe this is a play on some type of storyline. We'll see down the road exactly what they were going for here, or see this storyline progress. So I'm intrigued, but I do feel like a heel faction like that, you want to build up more than you break down. And just like you're saying about the tag titles too, and then Bayley missing out on this opportunity, maybe it adds fuel to the fire. That's kind of what they're going for storyline wise. But I definitely think just like you said with Roman Reigns and the Usos and Sami Zayn, I love that Sami Zayn is in with all that. But just with the bloodline and what they're doing there, I think that you want to build up a heel faction. I think it's more important to build up a heel faction, being strong and as strong as they can in the beginning to really build it because than a face. Because if you're building up a face faction, it's more so, you want to see that, struggle and climb. And I think for the heels, you're kind of wanting to build something that seems unbeatable. This unstoppable force is taking over, and so we'll see. I mean, other than that, though, like we've been talking about all night, I just kind of thought about that 6-man tag match at the beginning, and they set this up like one of those old WCW cards back in the day. We didn't get cruiserweights kicking off, but we just got we got a brawl, we got a fight. We got a fight in the first match. Exciting, and they kind of paced themselves, or tried to pace themselves, all the way through, and I think they did a very good job of it.
Yeah, I think they could have placed the Liv Ronda match different. Putting it second, I just, I don't know if that was the right spot for it. But I think
in theory, I agree with you. But for what it was out there tonight, I think it was a good placement.
Well, right, you beat me to my point. I think Triple H knew that was where it needed to be. An interesting. What did you think of the strap match? And I've heard Triple H is going to go a little more heelish wins and victories like AEW does. But how did you feel about that? And I liked the start. Thought the start was good. Maybe I'm just not into Karrion Kross as much as other people are. But to me, I feel like McIntyre needed to win that. But I think kind of adds another way to it. It kind of feels like the Seth Rollins Riddle rivalry where someone needed to win, but you gave it to the other person, so now you have to continue it. But kind of where do you go from the strap match? You have to go Hell in a Cell or something like that. So do you have a 2-match series where it's brutal match to brutal match? I would guess it's where they're going with this, but it was fine. It wasn't a bad match, but the ending was kind of weird. But overall, a thumbs in the middle for me on that one, I would say.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. I'm not a big fan of strap matches. Period. Usually, anything kind of tying the two combatants together, I'm just not big on. I remember at the beginning thinking about strap matches, I was thinking about the dog collar match, which was a great match. And I don't mean that I can't enjoy them, but I just generally, I'm not a big fan of the stipulation. But I did like how they did it in the beginning, like you said. I liked how Karrion Kross kind of was messing with him, didn't want to, put the strap on his wrist. I also like the one thing I do like is when somebody has somebody outside, like Scarlett was, to be able to kind of interfere with the strap match like that or something. I think that always gives it a good, flair to it, just because how she pulled to start the night, I guess not start the match because it wasn't started yet, but for her yanking on it, for Kross to throw it away, and her yank on it, get Drew McIntyre off his feet, so Kross could come in and start a little beat down on him early, get that heel heat built up a little bit early on, and I think I'm kind of in the middle with you. I enjoyed the ending. I think I'm more of a fan of kind of endings like that than a lot of people are. Just because it's a win for everyone, because at the end of the day, Karrion Kross is a heel, and you're just like, damn, come in with the pepper spray, and I'm interested to see how this builds, but I feel like this is going downhill. You start with McIntyre and Kross involved with Roman Reigns and the title picture, and then it's like McIntyre gets his title shot, he ends up losing. Now he comes back for this rivalry. It does feel like a bit weird in the way that it's worked, to where McIntyre's the loser of the title match is circling back to Cross. And I think that that's kind of also giving it a feel like, okay, I mean, we don't want to give Karrion Kross a title shot like right out of the gate because, he's not the guy that's going to beat Roman Reigns. But, you just don't want to lose any steam on him. And I get that. But it just feels, I guess, kind of forced is kind of what I would say, just with McIntyre and Kross.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like you were saying, I mean, everyone was kind of tying back to Roman Reigns, especially with Karrion Kross, and the story they were telling with, Scarlett and all that. And, Karrion Kross coming out and attacking Drew McIntyre, but Karrion Kross telling Roman Reigns that wasn't a favor, that was a warning, or whatever he said. Yeah, it just kind of taken its own little backseat to everything, and I think that's kind of the only really downside to having Roman Reigns being on a part schedule, one, and two, having him be against Logan Paul at Crown Jewel. So you're going to have those moments to where it doesn't really necessarily feel like everything's making sense. I think this was just kind of one of those matches that isn't necessarily going to make sense, but not everything has to, I guess.
Yeah, I'm okay with that in the long run, is kind of what I was going to say, because it just kind of feels like, yeah, Roman's already tied up with Logan Paul. It's almost like in the UFC, like when somebody's not lining up necessarily, and so you kind of give them a, different challenger in the meantime. So when is Crown Jewel? It's next month?
November 7th, something like that. Early November.
Okay.
But I mean, we know who's going to win the match, so
right.
I mean, there's no point in really having it. But I'm sure Logan will do some good things, and I'm sure it'll be entertaining, and I'm sure Triple H will make it feel real. And who knows, maybe Bray Wyatt interferes in that match. I would assume he probably will. But
I think it's a good way to showcase Logan Paul without, we don't expect anything. He's like a Jeff Hardy Undertaker match. Give him a chance to kind of show what he may be able to do for the company.
Yeah, that's a good point. You do have somebody who has an immense amount of talent in him, and he's had two very good matches. But to put him in the third match of his career, basically, against the best, in a lot of people's opinion, and maybe mine, the best wrestler in the world, that's tough. But I think they'll work it fine. How did you feel about the fight pit? And this story has been interesting to me, because Seth Rollins, and I don't know if you agree with me or not on this one, but Seth Rollins kind of feels like Chris Jericho in AEW right now.
I can see that.
In the sense of he wins a lot, but it doesn't really make sense. In the Riddle rivalry, he wins a lot. It doesn't really make sense. It felt like he was going to win again tonight, but he didn't. Luckily, or for me, I think that makes the most sense. But he just kind of feels like Chris Jericho right now in AEW. You're kind of making him win, but it's not really getting him anything. I mean, Chris Jericho has the ROH title, but did he really need that? So how do you feel about Seth in that overall match? I thought it was a cool match. I thought those two put the personality of the storyline in it pretty well. I thought DC was an interesting touch as the referee. Overall, I'd say it was a good effort and a decent match, and something we haven't really seen on a WWE, premium live event, quote unquote level. But that was the main event of the show. And you kind of forgot that was the main event of the show, but that was it. And I don't know if that should have been, but again, like you said, there's no world champion on the show that night, so you put the hottest story at the end. Overall payoff, just overall, how are you feeling about it? the payoff is what it should have been, but it just seems like there was something missing.
Yeah, I kind of feel you on that because the fight pit was kind of meh for me. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I think I liked it. There was a few moments where it felt like it just kind of. I feel like the interactions with DC were a little forced and kind of weird, but for the most part, I mean, I enjoyed the match. I guess it was just it was an interesting way they did it too, because the old fight pits, you remember, they were kind of up by the stage, over off on one side, and I liked how Riddle reverted to like an MMA fighting style. It definitely gave it a different feel. The fact that they took the ropes off was a very nice touch.
I did like that. I liked how they modified the ring to make it seem more real.
Yeah.
That was a good touch, like you said. Yeah, I did notice that. And one of my my favorite spots was Riddle trying to literally murder Seth Rollins by choking him out from behind with the chain. Or
Yeah.
not with the chain, but choking him out while he was behind the chain.
While they were on the platform.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that spot wasn't working how it was supposed to, because Riddle let go fairly quickly.
Yeah.
It's because I think it was actually choking Seth out, because that would have been a hard spot to do without actually choking out Seth on accident. So and Corey Graves sold that buckle bomb in the corner beautifully.
Yeah.
Oh my God, oh thank God, because it looked like Seth was going for the middle of the ring, and it went into the corner. I mean, Corey Graves and Michael Cole, like you said, the go ahead to give them personality and let them feel themselves more really has made a Jerry Lawler not as good.
Right.
But
Uncomparable.
Feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get what you're saying, because it's like I said, Michael Cole reminded me of JR tonight. It was interesting because I feel like I don't know, for some reason I feel like I don't buy into Michael Cole, and I feel like tonight I kind of like just broke that, because I thought of JR and I was just like, some of the stuff that he called was like ridiculous, but it gave it a flair, it gave it a different, it gave it more. It gave the moment more, and that's what Michael Cole is doing. And so I kind of like broke that of just like, it's Michael Cole. I feel like over the years he's been kind of goofy, the whole heel act, and with him and Jerry Lawler and things like that. In my eyes, just make me kind of weird on Cole. But yeah, tonight I feel like I totally realized that I'm like, this dude is on another level in his career right now, and really adding, a big, level to the product.
You didn't want to be a coal miner?
Yeah, no, I was not into that at all.
Yeah, that was weird. I don't know why they thought it would be a good idea to have a heel announcer, like an actual heel being an. It was just
Right.
It was weird, and and he did his best with it, honestly. But yeah, Michael Cole felt like the '90s. Michael
Yeah.
Cole felt like a '90s Michael Cole. He felt, like he could do whatever he wanted, and maybe this is what it's going to be like going forward. And he's done a better job, I would say, since Triple H took over. But overall, he made like you said, the I Quit match. I don't think people understand it as well if he doesn't sell everything there.
Yeah.
It was just a job well done all around. And then we started off with it, but we'll kind of close with it too. Where does Bray Wyatt go from here? What did they do? Obviously, there's still a lot of questions as to what in the world he's even doing anyway. But where do they go from here? What is step one in the return of Bray Wyatt?
To me, that's the toughest part, honestly, because what do? Do you kind of like throw him a bone of a match where it's like somebody he's gonna beat, but to just kind of showcase him again, is he going to talk? I mean, obviously that's one of the, best things he does is promo work. But, we'll see. I mean, I think obviously he will, but I think it's really tough. Well, it's going to be interesting to see where they go with it. I mean, to me, I think that he could also go, maybe a month of a couple of promos here and there and, get some type of big match. I mean, I don't know what you book him in. Maybe he shows up next month at Crown Jewel like you were talking about in the Logan Paul match. I mean, what? Maybe save him. I mean, January's kind of too far away to save him for the Rumble. And I don't necessarily think his gimmick is, I don't know. He just doesn't seem like the guy I would see as winning the Royal Rumble, if that makes sense. I mean, he definitely could, just his character is going to go a different way about it, if that makes sense.
It's
because it's personal to him, like in his promo work.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of Undertaker-esque. I mean, Undertaker winning the Royal Rumble doesn't really do anything.
Right.
So it's tough to really figure out what he's going to do, in the future, and who knows what they're going to go with for him and all these characters. Like I said, apparently he has a chance to do 4 different ones. Who knows what that's going to look like? It looks like to me they were ending the Firefly Funhouse, I would assume.
Yeah.
Just with everything being on fire. Is Alexa Bliss going to come back and be a part of it? Is there going to be more of a Wyatt family trend towards it? Is it a heel faction? Is it a face faction? There's a lot of questions that we just don't know moving forward. But it's good to see the staples of wrestling in wrestling again.
Yes.
And I wanted to say this real quick. We skipped over it, or we didn't skip over it, but we didn't mention it. How fucking good does Edge look in the ring still at however old he is at this point? It's almost like he didn't age a bit.
It's almost like all the years he was gone from WWE, he he just stopped aging at that moment and then returned, and here he is.
Well, it was just wild. I mean, he hit, 4 spears in a row, and each one of them looked better, than the one previously, and it just goes to show that, and Daniel Bryan is doing it too in AEW, with all these injured guys that were told that, you're probably done. You're probably not going to wrestle anymore. They look better than they did when their injury took them away from the scene. So who knows what they do to get them in that shape, but it's just so impressive. And wrestling is such an empowering thing because these guys can get injured in their lives and careers and things of that nature. But when they come back and they wrestle how they do, it's almost forgetful in a way to show how tough it is to be at that peak and that point of your physical career for, so many years.
It's a fact.
So overall, if you had to give this show a rating, what would you give it?
What's our scale we're going on?
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out because everybody has different scale. So I mean, we could do 1 to 10. We could do 4. 1 to 5. We could do percentage. If we're going off of percentages, just off Bray Wyatt in general, and all the action that was in it, there were definitely some moments that were missed. I would give it a 93. And maybe Bray Wyatt adds, a 6% or 10% to that on a solid show. But, the wrestling, in-ring wrestling was great. There are definitely a lot of good moments in there. But the Bray Wyatt return adds 10% to any show you do. So, I would give it a 93, a 9.5, and then, 5 out of 5. This was just another well-done pay-per-view by Triple H.
I absolutely agree with you. I think that right around A minus, maybe B plus. I would say you got to go with an A. You know, you said 93. I'd say right around that range. The same. You know, 9 out of 10. I'm thinking there was a little bit that kind of held it back, but for the most part, I mean, this is one of the most exciting events in recent memory. I feel it reminds me of maybe like CM Punk, Darby Allin, just going off of recent memory, things like that were just such big moments. Cody coming back at WrestleMania, just WrestleMania in general. I think that obviously that would the first night of WrestleMania at least would definitely top this, but just with what this moment was and what it could lead to at this moment of, it's midnight after the show and we're directly reacting to it. It is a game changing event, tonight.
It is, and like we talked about at the top of the show, Triple H took the ball and said, "Take it from me."
Mm-hmm.
I dare you. This was well done by Triple H. This was well done by everybody in WWE. It'll be interesting to see where they go from it. Really will. My dog's even excited about it.
Yeah, giving it a 10 out of 10, huh?
Well, I mean, what else do we have to look forward to? Other outside of Extreme Rules, and we have Crown Jewel coming up in November. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of spoilers in that. You're not going to have anybody really shock you in that, maybe other than a Bray Wyatt return or something of that nature. But what do you feel moving forward is going to be the goal of WWE, other than keeping AEW at bay, which I think they will more so. But do you feel, let me ask you this, do you feel like Aleister Black comes back to WWE?
Ooh, now that would be one I think that would be a very good return to bring in with Bray Wyatt and, maybe deliver some type of faction with Bray or, tag team. But I think, kind of like you said, the goal, I think the biggest goal right now for WWE is to figure out the Roman Reigns situation. And that I just mean, how are you going to end the title reign? How are you going to, because all good things must come to an end. And I think, it is getting around the time to pull the trigger on that. And Bray may be your answer. I think that he probably is your answer. Do you split the belts back up? I think it's just figuring out what direction does Triple H want to take the company. Do you want to keep because I know we're kind of at a point where it's like, there's a brand split, but we're back to that like kind of weird, like early 2010s, like early to mid 2010s, where it was like, everybody's on every show pretty much. But there's still two a champ per show, before they, put it together with John Cena and Randy Orton. But so I think it's really just go from there. And, I think whatever they do is probably, at least right now in the looks of it, going to keep AEW still arm's length away from them from really doing anything ratings wise. AEW is going to have to come, back with it, because they had a lot of dominoes fall, a lot of momentum rolling to get them to the point where they're at now, and now it's almost the exact opposite. WWE is really getting the ball rolling and really picking up steam and momentum, and Triple H has been a huge part of that. And I think just to capitalize on that is figure out where you're going, because we're in October now, going into the big shows. You get to January, you got the Royal Rumble, and that leads you into WrestleMania. Survivor Series will be next month, obviously. So you have a lot of big stuff coming up that you could really do a lot of big things with. And I think at the end of the day, it's just, again, figuring out with Roman Reigns, figuring out, are you going to, resplit the titles? Is whoever is, contending for the title going to be the one to take both of them? Are you going to have a couple different people take different belts? And just who is going to do it? Because I can't see Roman Reigns getting beat twice for both belts in, a short span of time. Is the Bloodline going to fold? Paul Heyman, I think the Bloodline and the belts are really the biggest, topic if you're talking about, where you're going to go right now. Just because it's been 2 years now? Over 2 years for Roman Reigns?
Almost 3, I think.
Yeah. That'll be, at SummerSlam next year? 3?
I think SummerSlam would put it at 3, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, do you give Roman Reigns 3 years? I don't think you do. Unless if you're just hurting at that point with so many injuries. But I think once Cody Rhodes comes back, and apparently Cody Rhodes was not going to get a title even with his run, but that was still under Vince. So who knows what will happen with Triple H. But what do you do? In that, you nailed it on the head. What do you do with Roman Reigns? Do you let him continue his 2-title reign? Do you give him one title and then somebody another one? Or do you beat him in a winner-take-all situation and somebody else takes the other title and you do an actual brand split? At this point, I don't really care for the brand split because it just gives me more options for the bigger stars on Monday and Friday nights. It doesn't really necessarily mean anything at this point. You're just kind of getting the best wrestlers on the best show each night.
Yeah, I agree with the brand split thing. I think the brand split is almost, it's like it's compelling when it happens, but then it's like you get a year or 2 into it. I think it just becomes like, who cares? And I don't know if that's maybe a booking problem, creative problem, or if it's just as fans, we just don't care about it as much because I feel like, what was that, early 2000s when they did the initial brand split? That was huge, really cool, interesting. And even when they did the brand split, resplit the brands essentially a few years ago, what was that, like was that 2018, before that maybe?
It was when Finn Balor made his main roster debut. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but it was Foley and Stephanie, and then Shane and Daniel Bryan as the manager. So I can't
16,
remember what
17
year that
then?
was. But that's when they resplit everything into the actual competition of Raw versus SmackDown.
Yeah.
So, I don't even necessarily think they need to do that. They're not really having managers be a part of the show anymore.
Yeah.
Which, it's actually okay. You think you kind of miss that aspect of it, but as you're watching it, you really don't necessarily need them, or pay attention to them. The only ones that really you pay attention to, were Teddy Long and, Eric Bischoff. But outside of those, you didn't really pay attention to them that much. They didn't really have that big of an impact on the show.
Agreed.
So, a lot to unpack tonight, a lot to look forward to here in the future of WWE. We'll wrap it up here, but real quickly, I guess we'll just kind of guess, and if we're right, we're right. Who is Bray Wyatt's first rivalry right out the bat?
Man. Ooh, that's an interesting one to tackle, I think. After tonight, I wouldn't mind. I mean, I guess we'll see how Cross comes out of this, but if you were to make Bray Wyatt face, that would be an interesting, kind of dark matchup to make. Both characters kind of share some of the same characteristics a little bit, and put Karrion Kross over in a way where, obviously probably needs a win in between. But I think you could get by with that in a way where, again, it's like Cross is going to show himself off, but Wyatt is going to come in and win the matchup. Or Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins is another one that I think would be a really good idea to put with him. Get Seth Rollins out of the Riddle rivalry, and maybe, depending on where you're going to go with the character of Bray Wyatt, if the Fiend is going to show his face again or anything like that, Seth Rollins would be an interesting one, just with the way that whole rivalry went, and his just history with Bray Wyatt in general.
Well, that's a good point. He actually brought that up in the Ariel Helwani interview that Seth Rollins did with him. That is a rivalry he said he wanted another crack at, mainly because the Fiend character, in his words, was too hard to deal with, and not in a bad way. It was just hard to not make him look strong enough, was how Seth Rollins put it. And he basically said that he would rather have had him get squashed in Hell in a Cell than whatever the hell that ending was in that match.
It never ended. It's still going on.
Yeah, but he alluded to, obviously, that was not their call.
Right.
So I think we will get another crack at that, and that'll be good too. As far as it goes for me, I think an interesting one with Bray Wyatt, if you're going to make him face, maybe you pick off the Judgment Day one at a time, but that's just such a hot act right now. I don't know if you really mess with that. So I think you put him at the in-betweener role and maybe put him up against a guy like Riddle. Now that Riddle has beaten Seth Rollins, Riddle's going to take that next step. So that next step would be Bray Wyatt. So why not put him against Bray Wyatt and see? I think those would be 2, 3, 4 really good matches right there.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. That would be a very interesting continuation of things for Riddle. What about if he came in and maybe he picks off the Judgment Day, but then he, becomes the leader of the Judgment Day? It's like kind of what he did with Daniel Bryan.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that would make sense. Or maybe he's been the leader the whole time.
Oh yeah.
Who knows? Behind the scenes thing. Somebody. I keep saying Melinda here, but we will here in just a minute. Somebody sent a comment, a video that I thought was pretty funny. When they were doing all the White Rabbit videos and stuff like that, somebody made a comment that said, "Watch it be Vince McMahon with a hood that comes out and says it was me the whole time, you stupid idiots. It was me all along." And that would be the ultimate Vince McMahon middle finger. He was the White Rabbit the whole time.
That would be interesting. What a turn of events that would be.
Can you imagine how much heat he would get off of that?
The whole company.
White Rabbit. Well, obviously, thank God, Vince McMahon is not the White Rabbit. But all in all, one of the biggest nights in wrestling ever. Bray Wyatt returns. Who knows what hell's characters coming our way? But a lot of exciting stuff. We'll be on top of it and continue here with Wrestling with Kayfabe. Obviously, check out the blog. The Papa Schro is on top of and all that good stuff. And we will be writing and talking with more as big night for WWE, a big win for Triple H. Everyone digest this as much as they can. Sleep tight, and we will be on top of it. Wrestling Kayfabe, we're out.